First of all, thank you for being here, Conrad. It's a pleasure to have you once again, with our clients here that attend the weekly webinars. So, for those of you that are attending here for the first time, just a couple of messages here. Uh, this is recorded, so you get the recording after, right? So you don't have to ask. So all you have to do is register, and tomorrow you will receive the link to watch the webinar, right? So this is like that every single week, not a special occasion, but just be aware that you will receive it, right? This is the practical session. So we are always going over how to get things done rather than discussing too much theory, right? So you are encouraged to post your questions, to ask things, how to get things done, on the dashboard, right? How to find the features that you're looking for, how to configure anything in a specific way. But today, more specifically, we are going to be talking just about marketing, right? And of course, if you have other questions and we have time and it is, even if indirectly related, yeah, I'm glad to answer any questions on that. But we are going to spend most of the time discussing marketing, right? So we brought Conrad, which is the biggest expert on vacation rental marketing that I know of. And what is important, right? Why are we doing that? We are doing that because I keep receiving many questions, about marketing. Why am I not getting direct bookings, or maybe less than I expected? Oh, I have created my booking engine the way that you told me to do it, right? But people are not showing up, people are not uh, booking me, what am I missing? So in uh, most requests, what I see is, okay, there is missing the marketing side of things, right? So that's why we brought an expert here, so you can ask questions. He can bring, of course, share his knowledge, explaining more about steps that need to be taken before you get your reservations. And that's why we are calling it getting your first 20 website bookings, right? So if you're beginning, but it's not just for beginners, right? Let's be clear here, right? So, but I see the struggle, you know, it's even bigger, for someone that is getting traction, trying to understand. So you got to the software, you're still figuring out your way around the booking engine. Okay, you got it, right? So now, what is the next step? This is what we are here, to talk about, right? So I'm going to pass the word to Conrad so he can introduce himself and talk more about marketing. And please, post your questions, any question. There is no dummy question here. Any question is valid. Everything is important. Maybe your question is the same question that someone else wanted to ask, right? So your engagement is encouraged here. All
Yeah,
right. Conrad, thank you for being here,
yeah, yeah,
passing the
absolutely. Well,
word to you.
I was going to say you brought me back, so hopefully the first one didn't go too poorly, and you must have liked at least a little bit of what we did last time. So it was
You guessed
hopefully
that right.
beneficial on both sides. All good. Well, yeah, excited to be back. Maybe for those that didn't attend the previous one or just haven't had the chance to connect with yet, I'll do a brief introduction about myself. My name is Conrad O'Connell. I'm the founder of an agency called BuildUp Booking. So we work specifically with vacation rental managers, short-term rentals, on their marketing. Our primary focus or our primary I would say channels that we spend the most time on is typically search, social, and email marketing. So I've got notes kind of on all three of those today to kind of talk through a little bit. Some search ideas, both paid and organic, some social media ideas, paid and organic, mostly focused on Instagram, but we can certainly talk about other channels as well if people have questions about those. And email marketing. So reaching back out to past guests through email. I'm even kind of thinking, honestly, a little bit, Andrew, about redefining outbound as maybe email marketing to past guests and SMS marketing to past guests, because I think that's becoming a growing trend with almost every client that we're working with today is doing both email marketing to people that they have their email from and SMS or text message marketing to people that we have phone numbers for, of course, once we collect their consent. So I'm kind of thinking of how I can change that naming a little bit. So, because that's obviously a growing trend that we're seeing right now with a lot of our clients. So, Yeah, the topic that I kind of pitched, or the topic that I wanted to go through today, was talking specifically about getting those first 20 direct bookings. So I have a few kind of prerequisites or things that I thought through that would be the case in order for you to kind of get those direct bookings. And one thing that I've learned over the years is that if you skip a step, everything you do after that can be a little bit on shaky ground. So to give you an example, if you don't have a direct booking website set up, if you haven't taken your Hostaway Booking Engine and got it out there live on the internet with a domain name, ready where someone can go and book it, it's gonna be really hard to get a direct booking if you don't have that infrastructure set up, right? So that's obviously kind of a prerequisite or something that you'd require to do in order to get to that next step or get to that next stage of getting more direct bookings. So I'll go through some ideas that I think are kind of these like starting points or prerequisites for getting some of those direct bookings. And then again, I have some specific tactics or things that I think in the past have proven to be very successful through each of those channels. So search, social, email, and SMS, kind of putting that together in one channel, if you will, getting some of those direct bookings back, through your platform. So if you've taken the time, effort, energy, et cetera, to go sign up for Hostaway, get all your data connected, get all your information in Hostaway, you've got a great system to work within. And I would say, Andrew, one thing that I would update you on since our last webinar, I think I was in the process of becoming a Hostaway partner in the last webinar, but it wasn't final. Now that's final. So if you go in the Hostaway marketplace, you'll see a listing for BuildUp bookings. So that's exciting for us as well. That wasn't the case last time we spoke, which is a good thing. But yeah, I'll
Yeah,
just
I
get
can even
started here.
show it here. You
Yeah,
can
yeah,
find it
absolutely.
here, right? So you come to the marketplace, even though
Yep.
we are sharing, right? So you can reach out to Conrad by his email, right? You can ask anyone, from Hostaway. Let's say you forget, you can reach out. We'll be glad to share with him. So, but you can find it here, right? In case you want to find it straight from here, you can find uh build up.
The build is a common word. I think that's the problem that we're doing here. Yeah,
Yeah,
build up is one
right.
word, so that should narrow it down.
Okay,
There you go.
there you
There it
go.
is.
Right on build up, it is the only one. Right on build,
There
it
we go.
is. There we have many, right? But if you come here, you see there is a
Excellent.
link to the website and everything. But like I said, right, in case you forget the name by any chance, you can reach out to anyone, at Hostaway. We'll be glad to assist. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. So I've got this talking points list here that I'm going to run through and go through at a high level. I don't have slides today, so I'm definitely open to questions. If you guys have questions as we get going here, pop them in there, and I'll try to do my best to either work them into the talking point that I'm going through, or obviously I can maybe we can save some time at the end and go through some of those pieces as well, as far as what you're hoping to achieve. So this is where I want to start. I think the first goal in getting more direct bookings is actually to shift the focus from just the OTAs to building what a brand looks like. So whether you have one property, and you could have one property, I've seen this work for someone that just has one listing, or maybe you are a multi-property host or even a property manager. I think the mistake that a lot of people do with not getting those initial direct bookings is they've actually never created any sort of brand identity for themselves, even on the OTA platforms themselves. So for example, if you have, your Airbnb host name is Conrad or something like that, or Andrew or John or Mary or whatever the case may be, and there's no brand identity anywhere in that listing, you're probably going to struggle to get any off-platform bookings. So if someone comes on Airbnb, Verbo, whatever the case may be, obviously I'm being very clear here. I'm not advocating that you take anyone off-platform if you're violating any terms of service or conditions that you have with your OTA partnership agreements. I'm sure that I've never advocate that, but if you have some kind of brand identity on the OTA platforms, some guests will just naturally search for you in other places. So if you have, for example, your host name could be, for example, something like Conrad at a company name, or you could mention the fact that you work at a specific company name in your bio on Airbnb to give a specific example. Airbnb is definitely cracked down on making like your logo, your profile picture to be just like the logo of your company. It seems like we have some clients that have had that in place previously and have kind of let that go. But we had a client recently that we're working with who was trying to upload their logo to Airbnb directly instead of a picture of their face, and Airbnb didn't allow that anymore. So maybe there's been some shifting policy changes there. Again, I was always advocate that you follow all the rules and terms and service conditions, et cetera, that you've agreed to by listing on these platforms. But it doesn't mean that you can't leave a breadcrumb or two, assuming you're following the rules that a guest can follow. So the profile picture has gotten a little bit trickier, but that's something that you can obviously work around potentially. The workaround that we're coming up with a client is that's going to be a picture of him, and then he's going to have a T-shirt on with the logo of his company, just in the top part of the T-shirt, and that's going to be our profile picture going forward. So, and that should be fully compliant with all the rules and terms of service of these different platforms out there. So there's little breadcrumbs you can leave on your OTA listing. And I think those are just a starting point for getting some people to at least come off platform. So if they're on an OTA platform, if they're on, Airbnb, Vrbo, whatever the case may be, and you do leave a little breadcrumb out there in your property description, in somewhere in your photo gallery, in your profile name, or any other details in your bio, those sorts of things, you're going to get, in my experience, you're going to get maybe 10, 15, 20 bookings on a calendar basis from people that are just kind of going online and doing a search and finding your brand directly. Now, that does, I would say, require a few things, though, which is once you have actual, a name in mind or something like that, you may want to do some additional testing or, research to make sure that that name is something unique. If there's another person that says it's called the Beach House, right? Like that's a really hard brand for someone to actually find. And if you branded yourself as the Beach House, it's going to be really challenging for anyone to actually find that listing or find that information or data, anywhere on Google. If they were to go on Google, for example, and try to find you. So there's a book that I often recommend called Hello, My Name is Awesome. I'll put a link in the chat, or maybe you can put a link in the chat here, Andrew, for the folks coming in. This book is fantastic. I don't even recall who originally recommended it to me. I think I bought it for the first time probably in 2020, somewhere in that range. And this book basically walks you through the framework of how to actually choose a brand name. It sounds very simple on the surface. Oh, I'll just come up with a name. And then you actually try to sit down and come up with a brand name, and you realize this is actually kind of hard to find something that's unique, that hasn't been used by other people before, that I can find a domain name for as well, like a domain that I could potentially purchase and then connect my Hostaway platform to. It actually becomes really tricky, really challenging. So a little while ago, before kind of ChatGPT and all these AI LLM tools came out, I would just sit down in a room and like brainstorm with clients in the past when we're trying to name a company or even name an individual listing within that company. We just kind of sit down and try to think through it. And usually it just kind of felt like we were just hoping to strike gold, hoping to find kind of some of a random idea that would actually turn into a property name or a company name or something like that. But honestly, the AI unlock has been pretty incredible here. So now you can go into a tool like ChatGPT. I put a prompt out a little while ago on LinkedIn. If people want it, I can maybe dig it out here while we're chatting and put it in the chat or something like that. But I built a prompt that basically says, using the framework from this book, which kind of tells you what kind of tests to run to make sure that a brand is memorable and people can find you easily online. It's not used by other people. You can now go into these LLM tools and say, here's more about my property, here's more about my company, here's more about my hosting style, here's the location that I'm hosting the property in. Come up with some names for me. Give me a little bit of a starter list. And I find that Gemini in particular, ChatGPT, Deep Research in particular, is incredible because they can actually do a cross check in their database to see if anyone else has used that name either. So again, if we're calling something, the Beach House, they're going to be like, well, that's not unique enough. Here's some other ideas of, based on your background, based on information that you've given me, a way that I can make the brand name more unique. So as you're kind of building this brand and putting it in your OTA platforms, you want to make sure that you have something that people can actually find, so that when you go on Google, you're not competing with really anybody else. The goal in a branded search is not, I'm going to elbow out other people that have come up with the same, property name or same house name. I'm in Florida, this other person's in San Diego. I'm going to try to outrank them. You don't want to do that at all. What you want to do is pick something that's so unique, that's so specific, that when they search you, it's easy. It doesn't take much expertise to rank for a brand that you've actually put a little bit of effort around. Building out your Hostaway direct booking website on. You've got a domain name for it, a nice, branded, clean .com domain name, and then you can get kind of your first direct bookings that way. So that I would say is the starting point, really, which is, having that OTA identity be a little bit more merged with an actual company name, with a brand. Even if you have one listing, I've seen this work very well before. And then certainly as you get bigger, you're going to see the net effect of this grow significantly. So once you get, maybe, let's say you're a property manager, or you're looking to become a property manager or scale the business down the road, you go from 5 listings to 10 listings to 20 listings. First of all, you're going to have a company name, and then you're going to have a listing name as well, right? In most situations, you're going to brand each property with a unique name. Once you do that, it's kind of like you've got 20 little, tentacles out there that are kind of bringing you in a few guests and bringing you in a few searches on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and people are going to find those listings and make a booking, make a reservation just by finding you directly. So I think that's kind of the first 2 steps there, in that process. Does that all make sense, Andrew, from your perspective? Anything there that you think I could make more clear as we get through there? Yeah.
Yes. Wow. 2 things, right? So first of all, using AI for branding,
Mhm.
makes total sense, right? And using AI to optimize the search, right? And AI in a very open way, right? So in a way that you don't need any specific AI tool, right? So it's not like, oh, I have to go Gemini and ChatGPT, it's open for anyone. So yeah, great tools and readily available for everyone. So that's first, and a very good idea, to search for someone that doesn't have it. Right before, when you had to do like a branding work, the research itself was a lot of work, right? To find out if nobody was already using that name, right? So this is the kind of thing that AI, brings to marketing and improves the speed, right? Increases the speed that you can do this kind of work and the accuracy of it, right? So because it's checking, URLs all over the world. So that's awesome. It comes, that's something that I never tried it's before, so it's awesome to learn. And about the listings, that's also a very good one because
Mhm.
it brings to my it brings my memory about there is a trend that is more common nowadays that people look for the listing name and then they go search outside of the OTA, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know if you have noticed that recently, but before it was like you would go to a store, and then you would go to Amazon after the store because you have already checked everything, and then you would purchase on Amazon instead of the brick and mortar store, right? And same thing is happening with many OTAs, right? People go there, check, and then they go and check if there is a website, that they can book that same listing, but dealing directly, with the property owner, property manager, right? Not that again, yeah, I completely agree with you, right? So I do not recommend anyone to go around, the terms and conditions and the rules, you know, uh, applied by the OTAs because that's their business, right? And but I do recommend that people build the brand on their own. And we have discussed this many times, with you independently, talking about owning owning the brand, right? So you have to own your own brand. This is yours, right? So we have the OTAs as channels, and they do an amazing job to sell properties, vacation rentals. They sell, they stay. But at the end of the day, if you don't own your brand, it's like, okay, so then you're just going with the wind, right? Wherever the wind takes you, is where you're going. So yes, I completely agree with you. And some of the things that you're bringing, I can relate to that because I see that happening many times, right? So people build something. First of all, they're not so thoughtful about the name, and then it becomes a generic name, right? So then it's hard to be remarkable, right? For someone, okay, so they go, they stay at your property, but it was a beach stay, beach house. What exactly was, the name of the place that we stayed, and then you talk to your wife, she doesn't remember either because it was not memorable, right? So it doesn't, it was a name that they saw like 100 times, but then it could be anything. So yes, it is very important. But the listing name is also becoming more and more important, right? Because people will look for that, and will search, reverse search the same name that they found on the OTA to see if they can find additional information, right? Sometimes not even because they want to book directly, but they want to learn more about your listing, maybe find more reviews on Google, right? This kind of thing. So yeah, it works. It works in a positive way, if someone's researching more about your listing name and more about your business, by by any
It's kind of like,
chance
yeah,
that
once
they
that once
can
they start
find
that
additional
research.
information is better, right?
Exactly. I think once they start that research too, it's kind of like what other platforms have you left little clues at that people can pick up and work with. So for example, we can talk about this in a few minutes, but if you have a Facebook page, that's really helpful. If you have if you have an Instagram profile set up with that same brand name attached to it, that's helpful. They see your direct booking website with Hostaway. If you have some reviews out there, this is a little bit depending on the property and how you've actually have your business set up. But if you could do a Google My Business listing, that can be really helpful because you could get reviews on that platform as well. It's a little bit muddy, by the way, because Google technically doesn't allow single vacation rental properties to be listed as businesses. They allow them in Google Vacation Rentals, which is a different product. You may have to go, maybe if you you have any notes on that, Andrew, we can go back to that in a second. That's another way that you could obviously generate some bookings from Google. We find not a lot of clients get a significant portion, excuse me, of their direct reservations for Google, but they do get some, through that platform. So that could be something to consider opting into or considering working from. But what I'm referring to is like adding your office address if you have one as a Google My Business, and then you can leave reviews and get people to give you feedback that way. So I think that what they look for too is trust signals, because even if someone came off platform, let's say they did find your listing initially through something, and they find your brand through another means, Google search, whatever the case may be, and they start to look around and they don't find enough like information or they don't find enough data to kind of feel confident. Particularly, imagine you have a property that's more high end luxury and you might be looking at a five, six, seven, $8, $10,000 booking. You want a guest to feel really confident when they're swiping that credit card on your Hostaway Booking Engine that they're going to get exactly what they paid for. And for better for worse, again, there's different perspectives on this. I obviously have a very biased view of it, trying to encourage more folks to get direct bookings. The middleman gives people confidence. When they book through Airbnb or when they book through Vrbo, they do feel like, well, hey, if something goes wrong, I can go back to someone. I can go back to Airbnb and they'll try to get me into a nicer property, get me into a nicer stay, or whatever the case may be, right? There's a lot of people that believe that on the guest demand side. So we kind of have to like overly prove that we're legitimate, right? What we can't do, I think, in getting these first 20 direct bookings back to the topic of today's discussion, is we can't do the bare minimum. We can't put out a very plain website. Even if we go through and put out the very basic Hostaway Booking Engine website, it's a great starting point, don't get me wrong, but I can't put no text content there, not great images. I can't put not much information there and then expect it to perform as well as, something that is put a lot more effort into as far as content design, photography, information about me, that sort of thing. It's actually, this wasn't in my outline, but it's something that you kind of mentioned there that I can bring up here. That's one of the first things that I think a lot of guests look for on a website is the About Us page. And it's so funny because on Airbnb we see the same thing, or in Vrbo we see about the host. It's kind of towards the bottom of the listings. Airbnb encourages you to put some information about your hobbies or what you like to do there, and that kind of stuff. And does it really matter in the world of like shared listings? I would argue really doesn't. Like if I go and stay in it with a property manager and they tell me their favorite hobby is kayaking, does it really matter if I'm checking in with a door code and I never seen them? Not really, but it does humanize the experience a little bit. And I think that's probably what Airbnb is going for when they ask for those sorts of things. So I do think that angle of just like sharing a little bit more about yourself, putting that on your website, add a static page in your Hostaway Booking Engine website that says about us and share more about, like, even if you have one listing, why did you acquire that property? What is it about that? And don't say because it had good cash on cash returns, right? Like tell a little bit of a story, like tell a little bit about why you like hosting guests, what it is you enjoy about the area. What are some positive experiences the guests have had staying in the property? We've celebrated family reunions, birthdays, all these things I think are little trigger points that people will lean back into and say, oh, okay, like I'm in the right spot. I'm looking at the same listing, and those sorts of things. Now, the obvious, maybe piece that would make some sense here as well to mention is that if they do find it on your direct booking website, I do think that having a little bit of a lower rate than what you might charge on an OTA platform is a good idea. Now I don't think that people book direct only because the rate is lower. I think there's a lot of people out there that kind of push that messaging. Oh, you book direct and you save. I'm okay with that messaging as like a one sub bullet point amongst a broader scope of messaging that you're having, that you're saying on your direct booking website, on your Hostaway Booking Engine. But I wouldn't make it the only thing that I say. I would make it just one bullet point amongst maybe many other things that I'm saying when a guest is booking directly. Maybe you can offer a different check-in time. Maybe you can offer a small free welcome gift to a guest. Maybe there's other things that you can offer that are more value, that are not just purely, hey, I'm going to charge you a little bit less because you're booking directly. But it doesn't hurt. I will say that in my testing, and we have some clients that have tested this heavily. If the same exact date, same exact booking on your website is a little bit less than what you charge on an OTA platform. And if anything, I would encourage, as people kind of scale up their direct marketing, I frequently talk property managers into charging a reservation fee or a booking fee of some kind on their direct booking platform, because that helps fund their marketing efforts, right? Anything we're going to talk about today, whether it's marketing, it's going to take your time, it's going to take your money, or it's going to take both, right? In most scenarios, it's going to take both those things together. So I think if you charge no booking fees at all on your website and you're getting direct bookings, and the direct booking is way cheaper than it is on a platform site, I actually don't know if you're putting yourself in the best light, because you're not really giving yourself a lot of budget to work within, and you're not really incentivized, if I'm being honest either, to get more direct bookings, other than just maybe there's some side benefits there that you might see, more control to booking, getting the guest contact details, that sort of thing. So yeah, to recap that piece, I would say don't be afraid either to like charge a fee on your website to allow people to book directly, and maybe work on your Hostaway fee structure to make sure that it's very clear what the guest is paying for and how they're doing it. I mean, Airbnb has been charging fees now for the whole time, and they've obviously grown a lot charging fees. Now it's in many situations it's a little more less clear when you're going on the checkout page whether the host is paying the fee or whether the guest is paying the fee, obviously depending on the listing. But we can see that obviously is something that guests aren't that afraid of, paying a fee. Otherwise Airbnb would not have grown to the level that they've grown, charging the fees that they do. So just kind of wanted to go through that as a talking point there. I can't find. I did a quick dig, Andrew, while you were going through your last block there. I couldn't find the prompt that I generated, so maybe we can send that as follow up out to folks later on. But I did generate this prompt that allowed you to run through that scratch and smile framework. So if I hunt that down, I will be able to pop that in the chat here in a few minutes. And this is a way that you can actually get some brand names, from the AI tools that will assist a little bit. So I'll hunt that down as we're going here, and I'll be able to find that and go from there.
Sure.
So yeah, once you got your
I
brand
can
name,
share it later. I can share it
yeah,
later.
absolutely. Yeah,
If you
sorry.
have it, right? If you don't find it in the real time, that's okay, right? So
Yeah,
I'm sharing the recording tomorrow, right? So
no,
you have time, and we share together with the recording, if you will.
phenomenal. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll hunt it down. It's just when you're looking for something live, it's always it always hides on you,
Don't worry,
as it were.
don't
So,
worry, don't worry, don't worry. May I, since I have interrupted you here,
no, it's all good.
so something that you mentioned, about being on Google, being on different places, we always
Yep.
recommend using multiple channels, right? Again, because you own the brand, it gives you more credibility, right? So it is important that people find that you're not only on Airbnb, you're on Booking, on Verbal. So chances are, at least from the guest perspective, right? The guest that is suspicious. Oh, is this owner, a real owner? Do they own the
Mhm.
listing, or is just someone pretending, to own that? So I recommend to be everywhere. It gives credibility. It shows that you're a professional. That's one thing that I wanted to add. And another one about Google, you're right. Google Vacation Rental, we covered that last week, no, 2 weeks ago. So Google VR is a different one, from Google Business, right?
Right, right,
But we
right.
recommend to be on both again, right? Be in
If you
as
can
many
be,
places
absolutely,
as you can, right?
absolutely.
Because Google VR, it is the one integrated with a booking engine, right? So that's the way that if someone is searching for your place and is looking for short-term rental, you'll be at the top, of the results. Google will prioritize vacation rental section, with all the listings that are on that area, and if you have availability for what the guest is looking for, in the browser, they will find it, right? But my business, is a different one, and it is about branding again, right? Because just let me share here very quickly, because there is a technical difference that is, for those of you that were here like 2 weeks ago, we were talking about that, right? So when you're publishing, as long as you have the booking engine already set on Hostaway, right? In order to get to Google Vacation Rental, all it takes is a logo, right?
Mhm.
Nothing else. So to Conrad's point, it is about the brand again, right? So the only element that will be missing is a logo showing your brand, what your business is about, and then you publish your listings, right? So this is your brand, right? So this is what Google Vacation Rental is looking for. When we are talking about Google Business, this is where you claim your business, right? And that's also very important, because then the reviews of anybody that stayed at your property, for example, if they're going to Google Maps, for example, and they leave a review, it's going to your Google Business and will be there. So both, right? So even though they're a little separate here, very important to be on both.
Yeah, yeah. There was a question that came in while you were chatting there, and I appreciate Andrew you talking about the difference between the two, because obviously with Hostaway you can get into be able to list on Google Vacation Rentals, but that's different than being listed on Google My Business. And the truth of the matter is that if you go read the documentation, as I have a few times on Google My Business, they're pretty clear that they don't want individual vacation rentals listed on Google My Business. That's in their documentation that they don't want that. So if you're able to get listed, it's typically you might have to use a different category like bed and breakfast. I've seen some people kind of try to do that. I've seen some people say that it's an office even though it's not. So again, I would encourage you to follow all the rules and restrictions and all that sort of stuff, of these different platforms, or at least acknowledge that you're risking yourself in terms of getting taken off that platform. So for example, I've seen clients that I've worked with in the past get listed on Google My Business, even though they kind of shouldn't have, with like an individual home. and then one day it might disappear. So as long as you're willing to tolerate some risk on the Google side of that listing eventually going away, maybe it's something that you can explore. But if you just go to
Yeah.
business.google.com, it's something that you
Yeah,
can list
that's a
there.
very good
Put it
point.
in.
Listen to
Yeah.
Conrad, not to me, okay? On the
It's,
on Google My Business, he's the marketing expert, right? So
yeah.
I know
Yeah.
a lot about the platform, the channels, but he's saying that he has gone through the terms and conditions. Yes,
Yeah.
please pay attention to what he's
Yeah.
saying. Sorry,
And I've had
just
no, it's all good, Andrew. I've had some property manager clients go, oh, what I'm going to do is I have 30 listings that I'm managing. I'm going to go put 30 listings on Google My Business. And they usually get to about 4 before Google shuts it down, so they'll try to get away with that for a little while. So, and I'll
okay.
be honest, I've seen situations where people seem to get away with it for an extended period of time. Like they have a listing up there and it gets clicks, they've got reviews on it. They're listed as an individual vacation home rental agency, even though they're just one property, and they kind of seem to get away with it. So I'll leave that for folks to, do with what they will. I'll give the information. It's up to you. And if you want to tolerate that risk, but I will say, don't complain, right? If you get your listing up on Google My Business when you feel like you kind of shouldn't be listed there per their guidelines, then one day, 2 months from now, it gets taken down. I just don't think you can complain if you know the information there. By the way, Andrew, I did hunt down that prompt. I posted it on LinkedIn a few months ago, so I had to scroll way back in my feed to find it. I put it in the little host and panelist chat here. If you reshare that link, that's the prompt that I was referencing a few minutes ago for folks. The goal of that
Awesome.
prompt is you copy and paste it, give it some information, and it'll actually help you. ChatGPT or one of these other LLM style tools will help you brainstorm a brand name. So if you're just like stuck, like I've been in the past, helping clients try to do that, trying to come up with a brand name, it is pretty hard, especially one that has an open and available.com name and has not been used by anybody else. One thing I will say as a quick little disclaimer, that ChatGPT and some of these other tools do not check trademark databases. So if you're in the US, I know many people listening and probably are, you probably also want to go check the trademark database from like the US Patent Office. Trademark violation is not something that you want to mess with either, as it were. So yeah, there's the link that Andrew just put in the chat a few minutes ago for folks to go and grab that. And yeah, if you want to copy and paste that prompt and send it to people who are watching later on, Andrew, that's perfectly fine with me. There's nothing proprietary in that prompt. I shared it publicly a few months ago on LinkedIn. So, all right,
Okay,
let's
one more
assume if,
thing, Coran.
yeah,
I'm
no, go
sorry,
ahead.
since I interrupted you here.
Yeah.
Just one more thing. I'm getting many questions here about how to get on Google Vacation Rental, right?
Mhm.
Probably people are still in onboarding, but anyway, I just want to share here. I'm not going to do that now
Mhm.
because we are covering many other things, right? So most of our audience here has already, connected Google VR. But for those of you that haven't yet, right? And I'm getting a couple of questions here, right? So I'm sharing this link here. I'm sharing in the chat, right? So all I need is your email, your account ID, your name. You can say if it is marketing or other, right? So if you need to connect with Google, I can get some of my agents to support you with that, right? So they can help you with that. It's very easy. You can go to the page, but I'm sharing this here in the chat so that you can go, and you can take care of that, and we can help you with that, right? So instead of talking to every one of you individually today, I'm just sharing here the form. So please fill out the form and I'm going to get someone to assist you. All right.
Yeah, all
Okay.
good. I
Sorry
answered a
about
few
that. Go
questions.
ahead.
No, no, it's all good. Hey, it's meant to be a conversation. If I had to monologue for 50 minutes, Andrew, I think I would lose my voice, to be honest with you. So it is all good, believe me. I answered a few questions by the way. Some people that had specific questions about Google My Business. So if there's more, just drop them in the Q&A and I'll pop those in there as time allows here. All right, so let's assume a few things at this point, Andrew. You've got a brand name that you love. You've got the open and available.com domain already secured. Let's assume this now at this point. You've now gone ahead and connected that domain name and you have a working website using the Hostaway Booking Engine platform. So let's assume those kind of three things. I think that's kind of the starting point. That's like when you're at the gate, ready to actually start the race is when you have done those few things. And that sounds simple, again, but believe me, it can take a little bit of time to get all those things set up. So once you have those pieces in place, I think search is really where you're going to start to see some initial wins most likely. And to be clear, it's not going to be ranking for terms like, let's say you're in Orlando or I'm based here in South Carolina, North Myrtle Beach, Beach specifically, you're not going to rank probably right away for North Myrtle Beach vacation rental condo, right? Or Orlando vacation rental. Is that something that you might be able to do down the road if you're a property manager? Absolutely. That's what our agency does. We help people do that. But for a single property host, or maybe someone that has a few listings, if you're in a very competitive market, that's going to be a steep battle to climb on those very competitive keywords. But that's okay, because that's not the only keyword that people will search to actually get a booking, right? I'll refer back to this brand. Your first 10 or 20 direct bookings are probably going to come off people looking for the name of the listing. So I do a podcast, Andrew, and the example I always give, it's not a real thing, but like Conrad's cool cabin. Maybe I'll buy a cabin one day and make it a real thing so that I can show this live to people. But if that was the name that I chose, Conrad's cool cabin, and I had it up in North Carolina, and people are searching on Google Conrad's cool cabin, and there's no other Conrad's cool cabins out there, they're just going to find my website and they're going to click on that, and I'm going to get some bookings from that. So we can't get indexed in Google, and we can't get that initial traction unless we have the working brand name, we have a .com domain name, we have the Hostaway Booking Engine set up, and we've got some text on there explaining, that this is what the cabin is, here's the location, that sort of thing. But in my experience, that's actually where things, start, is just getting those initial bookings off platform through that. And of course, past guests. So one thing I probably didn't touch on yet on the branding side is once you have that brand name, put it in as many places as possible, even in the property. I'm always surprised when I stay with clients somewhat regularly, from traveling with my family or something like that. And I'm always surprised when I walk in a property, I don't actually know who I'm staying with. It's such a departure, I think, from a lot of hotel brands where you walk in and like every little small thing is branded. Like the little pen sitting on the desk will be a Hyatt pen or something like that, or the little notepad there. Or if I open the remote, or if I grab the remote for the TV, on the bottom of it, it'll say like Hyatt. Or when I turn on the TV, there's a Hyatt logo on there. Just one example. It's the same at pretty much any chain hotel. So they're putting their logo, putting their brand everywhere, because the hotel room is almost like, in a way, a commodity product, right? There's 300 hotel rooms, in that same building that look exactly the same. So they're trying to at least reinforce or kind of give you that that visual memory, that visual cue over and over again of where you're staying. When you walk in most vacation rentals, I never see a brand, in very many places. Maybe every once in a while there'll be like one little piece of like a little card or something like that's sitting somewhere in the listing. But I see most people just not putting much effort into it. So that could be another point of how do you get those initial searches? How do you get those initial direct bookings? Well, from past guests, if they don't recall who they stayed with, if they don't remember the name of the platform, or the name of the not platform, the name of the property that they have booked with before, it's again going to be really hard to get them to search and find you again. But if it was there in the welcome information, if it was there as a physical reminder in the property, I've seen some clients here, it's common at the beach that people have like little signs, right in front of the property with the name and what it's actually called. Those are all little cues that people over time will find and start to search and find you on Google, and get that site out there, and discovering you that way. So once you've got that site live, I think you want to do some basics. You want to install analytics, and you want to get the site indexed in Google. So what I say by index is you just want to tell Google this website exists. It's got some valuable information that I think people are looking for, aka our guests that we're trying to attract. And you want to pop that into Search Console and get analytics on it so that we can see how many people are coming to the website. And again, initially, most of them are going to be coming from brand keywords on Google. So I know in Andrew, in Hostaway, there is a setting where someone can install analytics. I don't know if we want to do like a quick explanation of that. If not, I'm sure there's a help doc on it. And then Search Console is just a matter of going to Search Console, adding your website, and then clicking verify once you have that analytics code installed. So that's maybe one thing that we could do as a little demo as well.
Yes, of course. Right. So getting questions about different channels. Yeah, in respect for everyone that is here, I would appreciate if you could add your questions here, and it's anonymous, so I cannot even use your name. So please post your question here. I'll be glad to address it later. All right. So today let's focus on direct and marketing, because on its own, there is a lot of content to talk about, right? So, but I will gladly go there. Right. So you were talking about booking engine. And then we have the booking engine. Then we have settings. And then on settings, we have advanced. And then you can scroll down here. And this is what Conrad is talking about, right? Google Analytics and the Facebook Pixel you can use, and also SEO. Right.
Yeah.
Conrad.
And actually, we're going to come to Facebook in a minute. So maybe we could just do a quick little, sidebar here on Facebook. But yeah, if you want to think about how you're going to advertise the website to other people. Facebook can be obviously a phenomenal way of doing that. When you run ads on Facebook, I'm saying Facebook nowadays, it's Meta. That's kind of how they branded everything. But you're going to be able to show ads to people who are both users on Facebook, users on Instagram, as part of kind of this Meta umbrella. And if you have the pixel tracking in there, Hostaway's done a really good job, and we work with some other PMSs that don't do a good job. So I always give credit where credit's due on that side. Of you just put that pixel in there, you don't have to do a lot of extra configuration of additional steps or codes or some pieces like that. With some other PMSs, we have to do that. And then we've got event tracking, we've got pixel tracking already enabled there, and same thing with that analytics code. So once you paste that analytics code in there, once you've got that Facebook pixel code in there, now I can see who's coming to the website. And then the benefit of it on the Facebook side of things, the Meta side of things, is now I could actually show ads to people specifically who have visited my website. So if I could just give one more tactic here as a quick story, just because you had the Facebook pixel up on the screen there a minute ago, one of our most effective ads that we run for people, whether they have 1 unit, 10 units, 100 units, 1,000 units, it doesn't matter, is just retargeting people that have been on the website recently. So if you're a small host, maybe you just have one property, you will need a certain threshold of traffic in order to run these retargeting ads. But once you start to get some momentum and you're getting a few hundred people to the website every month, you can actually show an ad to people that have been on the website on Facebook and Instagram. So imagine someone's browsing around. Let's be honest, they're not just looking at your listing. They're looking at other listings, maybe on Airbnb or Vrbo. They're looking at other listings direct. They're going to be doing some shopping, as most people do, particularly for larger stays, particularly for larger properties that include multiple people. By just showing them an ad on Facebook and Instagram, now that once they go on your website, you can then show them an ad based on that criteria. That is one of the most effective campaigns we run. And if you're not a large property manager, even if you just have one property, you're not going to need a big budget, because if you only have an audience of a few hundred people on a retargeting list, or maybe 1,000 people over time in a retargeting list, you might spend $5 a day or less. We have some clients that spend less than $5 a day. We've set up Facebook ads before. They are reaching everybody in their past guest list, everybody who's been on their website recently, and everyone that's already follows the page on social media. So when we're building a Facebook ads targeting audience and kind of trying to get people to come back to the website once we have it up and going, that's a very effective way of doing so. And you don't need a massive budget. One complaint or comment I hear just over and over again that I've heard now for feels like 10 years is, well, I don't have the same budget as Airbnb. I don't have the same budget as Vrbo. No, you don't, but that's not the point. The point isn't to spend more money than Airbnb. The point is to make your advertising profitable, to make your advertising work for your business. Even if your business is very small, that's okay. Like, that's not a bad thing. If anything, you would say the problem that Airbnb and Vrbo are facing is they're trying to gobble up as much market share as possible. They're spending a lot of money for doing so, but it's almost like they're grasping at everything, and what slips through the cracks is what you can get as some of your direct bookings when you just have your small little portfolio or your small little listing that you're trying to get bookings for. So I never think
And
of
one
it
more
as,
thing, Conrad,
yeah,
this is a marathon, right? This is not a sprint, right?
absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
any advice that you're bringing here is not like, okay, just got the reservation now and I'm done, right? So this is the beginning of something, right? Everything that you're talking about here, many of the things that you're bringing are the foundations of a long run, right? Of a brand that stand for a long time and recurrent guests, that keep coming back, right? So it is the first
Yeah.
ones are the most difficult ones, right? But you're building a brand, you're building a guest portfolio, right?
Right.
Returning guests. So many things that it's in your own interest, right? So you're not going
Absolutely.
to spend that much money, but you're going to build on the top of every single step that you took before, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, right? And I've had this conversation with people before too about, well, I think in the first year or two, maybe, like, you're not going to be getting a significant portion of direct bookings, but particularly if you're in a market that gets a lot of repeat destinations, or repeat bookings, I should say, excuse me. If you're in a destination that's like that, over time, it's like you build that snowball of past guests. So if you're educating the guests too on booking direct, and you're in year 3, maybe, or maybe you're in year 2 at that point, you now have a list of maybe a few hundred people that have stayed with you before. And if you're marketing to them, if you're getting messages out to them through email or through SMS, over time, that number is only going to grow. And I'm assuming a few things. I'm assuming they want to come stay again. I'm assuming you did a great job. They had a great stay. Of course, all those guest experience things that matter. I will say, if you do a crappy job, no amount of marketing is going to save you. So make sure the guest is having an amazing experience first, and then the marketing is going to work a lot better. Trust me, we've seen that a lot in my 10-year career at this point. But once you have that guest who's really happy, who wants to come back again, it's just reminding them. It's kind of reinforcing, to your point, Andrew. It's a marathon. You're talking about those things repeatedly. Maybe they may return through different ways, like we talked about a few minutes ago. Maybe they just go back on Google. Oh yeah, I remember the place I stayed. It was called this, and then they go back and Google and make that direct booking. It's not even someone coming off platform from Airbnb and Vrbo. It's someone that's just remembering that they stayed there before and want to stay again. The bigger the property you have, the more I think email collection matters. in property. So I think there was a question right at the very beginning, one of the first questions from Mark G. If I don't think we should say last names, Andrew, to your point. What would be the best way that you would collect emails and send out marketing emails to promote direct bookings? I think in property email collection is the best way of going about it because it's compliant with all the, again, rules and regulations in terms of service of any platform that you're using. And in a larger property, you're going to get a lot more emails doing in property email collection than doing anything else. So some of our clients do things like rental agreements where the email is a field in the rental agreement. Some clients will do things like just require an email, when they're doing their ID check or something. But I think the best solution system that I found is StayFi. So I know we're recommending another vendor here, Andrew, but I don't think Hostaway offers a competitive, product for that because that's physical hardware in the property. And that's where, our clients that get the biggest email list, the best email list over time, they're all using StayFi so that they can get those email, and lately more phone numbers we're collecting, and then we can market back out to those people, through
Funny that
those
you
channels.
mentioned,
Yeah.
I have invited Arthur, and we are going
Okay.
to have a
Good,
webinar
good, good.
soon,
Yeah, he's
just with
excellent.
StayFi, right? Exactly because of that, right? So it is an easy way to collect emails,
Absolutely.
and it doesn't go against any terms and conditions, like you mentioned, that we have to
Right.
be extra careful, right, with the OTAs, not to
Right.
go around
Right.
that. And he's a great, he's a great guy. But and the company is very professional, has been developing, great work for small and big property managers to collect email through Wi-Fi. Yeah, to your point, I
Yeah.
completely
It's very
agree.
frictionless.
It is excellent.
I remember when I first met Arthur, it was many, many years ago, and he sent me a unit to put in my own house so I could see what the setup process was like. Because he's like, hey, if you're going to tell clients to do this, you should do it in your own house. So I did it in my own house. And my wife was trying to log on the Wi-Fi later that day. And she's like, why is it requiring an email to log in our own Wi-Fi? This is our personal home, not like a vacation rental or anything. So that was a fun explanation of, yeah, this guy in New York, he sent me this hardware and putting in, it was kind of a strange thing. But no, the bigger the property, the more StayFi benefits you, by the way. So if you have a condo, there's maybe a couple staying. I will say StayFi has less relative value to you because you're not going to grow the email list as fast. But we have clients who have properties. The call I was on just before this, Andrew, or the call before that, I should say. We have a client that we're working with there who has properties that sleep 25, 30 people. So when he has StayFi installed in these units, and he might get anywhere from like 10 or 15 emails every single booking that's made, and not just the person who made the reservation, but it could be 10 or 8 other adults that are staying in these large properties. His email list is growing literally, it's not an exaggeration, 5 to 10 times faster by having some in property email collection because people go and open their phones, they go to log on the Wi-Fi, and then they're getting prompted to enter in their email and get that information. So yeah, couldn't be a bigger fan of that. And I think one piece that I see missing, again, going back to the topic of today's discussion, getting those first 20 direct bookings, is I think people maybe they install StayFi or they start to work on email collection, whether it's through their PMS and Hostaway, and whether they try it some other methodology, and then they go, oh, I'll start doing email marketing once my list is bigger. I'm not going to worry about email marketing right now when I have a small list, and then they just never do it. It will put on the back burner. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. And I'll admit you're not going to get a lot of direct bookings when your email list is small, but you want to build that habit because it's going to take you the same amount of time to send an email out to your past guest list, whether that past guest list is 10, 100, 1,000, or 100,000. Like it takes pretty much the same amount of time. But over time, your email marketing gets significantly more effective as you get a lot more emails on there. So we have clients nowadays who can send out emails to their past guests and just reliably, almost every time, guarantee 5 or 10 bookings every time. A bad email maybe is 5 bookings. A good email, they might get 10 bookings from it. Because over the years, they built up a big past guest list of people that want to stay. So it's a very, very effective way to get more direct bookings. They're linking their, Hostaway Booking Engine site there in the past guest list. They're, having additional information. They're designing a newsletter and they're sending it out. So yeah, my caution there would be don't wait and say, oh, I'll do it later. I'll do it once we have more people on the list, because that's just later will never come. So just do it, even though it's a small list, knowing that yes, you're fishing in a very small pond. And then over time, you'll build a lot of value in that. And then your email list will grow and you'll get significantly more direct bookings. But again, going back to today's topic of getting your first 20, you might get your first direct booking when you have like 80 people on your email list, right? Like I've seen that happen before. Someone just getting started, has even just one listing. They're going to start to get at least some direct bookings once they have that infrastructure set up. So, and you're sending it to the booking engine. So couldn't be more
All
bullish
right.
on that side of
May I
things. Yeah,
interrupt
go
you
ahead.
for a second? I got a question here, about, just let me share here my screen. Okay. First of all, Conrad hasn't shared, but I'm sharing here. This is his book about vacation rental marketing. In case you're interested, I just found it on Amazon, but I'm sure that you can find, in many different places. But I got a question here about uh, what are the risks, by booking direct. I believe, okay,
Mhm.
that's we are talking a lot about sales, and someone brought, and marketing, right? And someone brought a question. Carlos brought a
Mhm.
question about the risk of booking direct. Let me tell you something. There is risk with any channel, right? So there is no such
Absolutely.
a thing as no risk reservation, right? Even Airbnb just changed the terms and conditions of payments and everything. So if a guest doesn't pay, that might compromise your payout. So there is no risk-free reservation, right? So your questions as about chargebacks, property damage. So we offer insurance. You can collect a security deposit, for example, to be on the safe side. We have rental agreements, in Hostaway, and you can collect. Okay, let me show you quickly here. So you you can collect on a single listing. You can have security deposit. You can specify the security deposit here, refundable security deposit on the guest portal. We have online check-in form. Again, pay attention if in your case it is allowed by Airbnb, in some cases not. And then you can ask for information, additional information, not only about the guest that booked the reservation, but the guest that is staying at the place, which is the difference, that Conrad was bringing up, that people want to use Wi-Fi. And we also have rental agreements, that can be used, and you can find it here. You can add the rental agreement. So you can only uh, cover yourself, with so many things, right? For example, if you have a rental agreement and you receive a chargeback, you can present the document that was signed, and the proof of conversation that you had with the guest that they had stayed. But there is no risk proof, right? But there are several things that you can take as a caution measure, to prevent that, or at least to present as evidence, that the guest has stayed.
Yeah,
And
exactly. I
one
mean,
more thing, when you
yeah.
collect, every time there is a reservation, a new contact is added to the guest book, right?
Mhm.
So once you have this guest book, you can download and you can upload that to your CRM tool, and you can start using, right? So you don't have to wait for a tool. You can use, all the emails that you have, right?
Yeah,
Back to
absolutely. I
you,
mean,
Carl.
and no, it makes sense. And I think that, it's the right question to ask, to be clear. And I think anyone who says that, Airbnb has my back, I mean, if I'm being completely honest, I just don't know if they've actually had a legitimate issue with Airbnb. Like, I'm talking severe property damage. I'm talking, something that really happens with a guest. Because I mean, I've seen over and over again clients just have, when you work with a big property manager like we have, for 10 years at this point, work with all these companies, I've seen everything. I mean, I've seen every problem, or I've heard every
Right,
story
right,
about that type of thing. And I think some of the things that the platforms offer are great. They try to do the right thing, for the most part,
right.
but
Exactly.
everything has limitations. To your point, you're never going to get a perfect guest every time from any platform. Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, doesn't matter. You're going to have an issue. You're going to have some issues with direct booking guests too, of course. That's just the nature of it. We had a client that had some fraudulent transactions a few months ago. Someone stole a credit card and was booking and staying at these properties, and it took the owner of their credit card a few days to kind of figure out that their credit card was stolen. And then the police got involved. It was a mess. I mean, I don't really know how you prevent that, right? Like, it's just, I guess I look at it as cost of doing business, but I do think it would make sense maybe for people to
It
like
is.
understand what their insurance policy actually covers. You probably want to talk to maybe like one of the Safely crew, like one of those types of people, and better understand like what you're covered for, what liabilities might exist. But certainly everything I think you highlighted there, Andrew, is great. But yeah, it's, I think anyone who just kind of thinks, oh, Airbnb has my back, air cover is going to get me no matter what. Man, I've heard some horror stories over the years from things that just don't really work out in the way that you expect. So I think maybe that's a good starting point, but I think you've got to have some more insurance on top of that, regardless of if you're getting bookings direct or from the large channels, because they're not always gonna have your back, unfortunately. That's just the way it is. So yeah. So
Interesting.
a few things that have come in. There were some questions about Facebook ads, and I touched on it earlier. So let's assume at this point we've got the website up and running. We're getting some of those initial direct bookings. Maybe we've got our first 5 or 10 or something like that at this point. We're indexed. People are finding us. We're collecting emails. So that's going to help, I think, a little bit over time. Get some of those additional guests to book. Especially if we're sending them email marketing messages. Facebook ads is another great way. Again, even with a small budget, I think if you're very specific about your targeting, you can get a lot of success, or get some initial traction conversion from Facebook ads. So I think the key with Facebook ads, even if you have a small budget, is to understand who's the target market, is my property actually ideal for a certain type of person, and could I describe that person to Facebook using like demographic and psychographic information. So what I mean by that is just, let's say I had a property here. I'm based in South Carolina, let's say in North Myrtle Beach, where I'm at. It's a home. It's meant for families. I've got all the game rooms. I've got all the, engaging stuff that a family would want. I can target in Facebook ads and meta ads moms in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is about a 3-hour drive for reference. Down here, a lot of people come to Myrtle Beach from the Charlotte area of North Carolina. And I could say, here's my property. I could create a video, walking through the property, explaining to people, how they could book direct. I could have an ad there. And then with the Facebook pixel tracking in place, once you have that ad creative actually built out, you could actually attract cold audience, people that have never seen the property before, to your Hostaway booking engine, to your Hostaway website, just using, Facebook ads or an Instagram creative. So that's a really good way. I think if you're looking to dip your toe into the water on paid advertising, using social media and having kind of a specific person in mind of who's going to book that property is ideal. And when I've had these conversations before, people will say, well, that's just one example, but I've had a lot of different people book before. That's okay. Just pick the biggest segment. Just pick the people that it's kind of most ideal for and start to do ads to those people. And we've had clients that, again, have started with relatively small budgets, few $100 a month, and they'll start to get a handful of bookings every single month just using a video creative, like a walkthrough of a property, a video tour, and then using Instagram and using Facebook to get some additional success there. Obviously, growing the pages organically is another great, tactic, but that can take a little bit more time. So I'm totally, on board, even with a small host or small manager, starting to use Facebook ads, even with a lower budget, to kind of start to put that brand out there, to put those properties out there in front of the right people, so they can see what you have to offer, see the property, work on those pieces. So yeah, one feedback I'd have there, when I look at like bad performing Facebook ads and people that set them up from scratch, they typically don't have video. So I'd say video is like a pretty critical component to having a more trust built. And it's actually something that you can get a direct booking website that you can't do on an OTA platform. There's not really like a video tab on Airbnb. That doesn't exist today. Maybe it's something that they'll do in the future, but at this moment in time, that doesn't exist. So if you can say, oh, when you go to my direct booking website, I have a full video tour of the property. You can see everything about it. If the photos aren't enough for you, that could be another good trigger point for someone to go to the direct booking website, see the video tour, see what you have to offer in the listing itself, and then maybe again feel more confident booking direct once they have that trust. So yeah, those are some things that I think make a lot of sense. I know we're coming up against the time wise here, Andrew, and want to be respectful of your time and the audience's time. So I think I've hit on almost everything. I would say the only piece that I probably didn't cover that I meant to is any sort of Google search ads. So certainly, as I mentioned earlier, you probably don't want to run ads initially on, again, Myrtle Beach vacation rentals. That's not the pond you want to fish in when you have, if you're a smaller host trying to get your first few bookings. If anything, you might want to find like more of those long tail, more specific keywords. So for example, in Google, you're probably going to have better success with, most family friendly vacation rental home in Myrtle Beach, that keyword, versus bidding on, just Myrtle Beach vacation rentals, which sure has a lot of volume, but that one is dominated by the large OTA platforms and the big property managers. So I think, between the brand pieces we talked about, the website, getting the email list up and going, SMS list up and going, branding the listing on the platforms as well, collecting email addresses, we kind of went through that, getting active on Facebook and Instagram. I mean, that's not your first 20 direct bookings. That's probably your first 50 direct bookings, but each of those things one step at a time, right, to get to your final outcome. And I think you can at least build, how I think about it is, at least think of your direct bookings as like a leg in a table. It should hold at least 25% of the weight. The platforms are great. You're going to get a lot of bookings from Airbnb and Vrbo. I think you should be getting a lot of bookings from Airbnb and Vrbo, but I don't think you want to be 100% on those platforms. I think you want to have some diversity in how you market your properties, just to have more options available to you. And I think all these tactics we talked about today can be that 25%. They could be one leg in a table of your business and make it more stable when you have bookings coming in from other sources.
Yeah, that's excellent advice, and it's completely aligned to being in different channels, right? So even though Facebook, is not, or any social media, right? Let's talk about Instagram and some other ones, they're not designed for vacation rental. They're designed to tell stories, right? And storytelling is a very important part of your brand, right? So if you want your brand to be memorable, or your place, or if you believe you live in a very beautiful place, for example, or maybe you're offering a very convenient stay, right? Sometimes it's not even about beauty or about vacation, right? Maybe people are going for business, right? So to show that, sometimes the platforms, the OTAs, are not enough, right? And then social media gives you, that part. It's important to bring, video interaction, right? Engaging with people. And so people can understand more about you. You can expose more about your personality. and the one that we were talking about, the hobby, on Airbnb, you can expose yourself a little more, and engage in conversation and clarify things, about your property and be more target specific, when you create any sort of campaign. So yes, we are running against time here, so first of all, I would like to appreciate, Conrad for once again being here and sharing all your knowledge, right? For the attendees, it's very important to know that Conrad, he owns an agency, right? He's one of the founder of BuildUp Booking. So if you want to hire his services, they're available, right? So all these elements, of course, they this conversation can go way deeper, and the amount of work that it can have behind the marketing can go way, way, way deeper, right? So when he's talking about Google Ads, it's hard to explain when we are talking about OTAs, short-term rental, the stories, social media. There are so many things that can be done, but of course, he can create a marketing plan, for example, execute ads on Google Ads, on Facebook. It's it is a very professional work, and it takes a lot of time that some of you may have the time to go over and do it, you're on your own, which is possible, right? And that's why we are here
Absolutely.
discussing that and bringing everything. But some of you may want to invest more time, more money, or even create more sophisticated marketing campaigns. In that case, I recommend you hire a marketing agency. Like in any other field, you need the experts, right? So some of the things. So it all depends on your knowledge, your time, and your budget. There are many things that can be done, and a marketing agency specialized on vacation rental, right? That you don't have to explain how vacation rental works, on its own, because we know, different marketing, different markets, demand different level of expertise, and product and service knowledge, right? Which they already have. Well, Conrad, thank you very much once again,
Thank you.
for being
Thank you.
here with us. And thank you everyone, that attended to this webinar. So again, you will receive the link, with the recording of this call, the contact to how to reach Conrad, the link to the prompt, that he just shared here with us. And anything else that I'm missing, Conrad?
No, no, I think that's awesome. Appreciate that, Andrew. If people have any questions, if they go to buildupbookings.com, there's a book a free call option. You'll be able to chat with someone on my team. And yeah, if we're happy to help you, we're happy to do so. We work with a lot of different Hostaway customers already, and we'd welcome more. So if it makes sense, we'd love to help you. If not, I would say most active on LinkedIn. So if you're just looking for free information, I try to post stuff there almost every day, tips, marketing ideas, all those sorts of things. And then to your point, the $15 option, if you will, is the book. So if you go to Amazon, search up Mastering Vacational Marketing, I put a lot of time in the book. I'm actually working on version 2 right now. That'll be out at some point, probably end of this year, beginning of next year. So trying to just, educate people the best we can. And if they're interested in working, they can find us that way. So I thank you for your time.
Yeah, it shows us 20 because I'm in Canada, right? That's Canadian
Ah,
dollars.
gotcha.
That's
20 in
why.
Canada. Yeah, I think that's an Amazon thing. I'll have to chat with them about the whole currency
Yeah,
conversion.
no. That's my Canadian browser, right? So Canadian
Gotcha.
dollars, 30 Canadian, 50 US
Yeah,
dollars,
and
right?
for people to reference, I've sold a lot of copies of the book. I make almost nothing when I'm selling these things because all the Amazon fees chew it all up and stuff like that. But hey, if you want a physical copy, that's the best way of doing it. Amazon will print it and send it over to you. So yeah, it's not a moneymaker for me, but I think there's good information in there on the book. So try to make it a useful
Yeah,
resource for folks for
it
sure.
is fantastic. I read
Cool.
it and I recommend it. Well,
All
thank you
good.
very much,
Awesome.
everyone.
Thank you.
See you
Appreciate it.
next week.
Have a
Bye
great
bye.
one. Thanks.